Zoe, before we move on to my very well prepared eulogy for the late and beloved Senator Lindsey Graham, can you update us on what the hell is going on with ICE? Because they keep shooting and killing people. We talked about this on Thursday, and now somebody else has been shot and killed. So what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I just start off by saying that this is a really horrific development. Yesterday, ICE agents in the state of Maine, for those of you who are not familiar with the United States, this is a kind of the northernmost state in the Northeast, were deployed in Maine conducting a traffic stop of attempting to execute a warrant. And they stopped a car with just a Latino person in it. That this person was not actually the subject of the warrant that federal agents had. They stopped the car. The person in the car, of course, is scared. And there's sort of, I think the person is trying to stop, trying to kind of understand what's happening. And federal agents shoot and kill the man driving, whose name has now been revealed to be Joan Sebastian Guerrero, a 26-year-old Colombian man who had authorization to work and live in the United States. He had a social security number. He was shot and handcuffed by federal officers and left on the street for 5 hours. And in the backseat of the car was his 3-year-old daughter. 3-year-old daughter wearing pajamas. And his partner, so they, his partner and his daughter witnessed his murder at the hands of federal officers. And immediately, once this news kind of broke, spontaneous protests happened in this small city in Maine, Biddeford, Maine. People were out demanding justice for yet another killing at the hands of Department of Homeland Security agents. And again, I think there's a couple important points to point out here. One, again, is that the warrant that ICE officers were, allegedly executing was not for Guerrero. Again, he had authorization to live and work in the United States. He had a social security number. So essentially, they racially profiled him and killed him. But of course, it should not matter what authorization you have or don't have. Nobody should be killed by ICE in a traffic stop. And then, again, there was kind of a brief attempt by the right-wing media to say, oh, well, he was trying to get away, which again is exactly what they said about Lorenzo Salgado Araujo last week. Exactly, when Renee Nicole Good was murdered in Minneapolis, she was also in her car. There was, again, this kind of confusion over trying to get out of the way. They shoot her in her car. And so, interestingly enough, in the past hour, I think there was an announcement by the Department of Homeland Security that ICE agents have to not do any vehicle stops anymore, because we know that since January 2025, at least 10 people have been shot and killed by ICE in the context of them carrying out immigration enforcement operations. And several of those have taken place in the context of vehicle stops. And there have been people even shot and not killed that also were shot in the context of vehicle stops. So I think that this is a good development that they have been now ordered to not carry out vehicle stops, but B, it is precisely because they are aware of the public anger over these killings. And we know that in January in Minnesota, after the killing of Renee Nicole Good and then the murder of Alex Preddy on the street as well, this sparked a national uprising. And that is exactly what they want to avoid. We know that in the past week, there's been over 10,000 arrests that the Immigration and Customs Enforcement has carried out. There's been a shift in the strategy of the Department of Homeland Security to carry out immigration enforcement. They're shifting to a more covert strategy, using more surveillance. Clearly, they're not doing it well because they have consistently targeted the wrong people. Lorenzo Salgado Araujo was also not the target of the warrant that federal officers were carrying out. So I think one of the director of ICE had said that we don't want ICE to be in the headlines. And so that, they're trying to limit damage control, do this damage control strategy because they know that people are deeply angry about this wanton violence carried out against immigrant communities, against people, standing in defense of immigrants. And they know that this could actually spark a mass uprising against the Trump administration, as it has done in the past. There have already been many vigils, again, organized both in Houston, Texas, where the shooting and killing took place last week, and in Maine. And this Saturday, there's going to be a mass mobilization in defense of immigrants and demanding the dismantling of ICE. And I just add, Rania, before I get your thoughts on this, that, for example, Mayor Zohran Mamdani has called for the dismantling of ICE. This is becoming a popular demand. ICE has been used by the Trump administration to just completely subvert all norms of law and order. I think it's a perfect follow-up from what Craig was talking about. Essentially, the Trump administration does not want to have any respect to due process. They want to be able to point at a Latino person on the street and immediately be able to verify whether they're deportable. This is actually not how immigration enforcement is designed by law. They have to have a warrant. They have to have, there has to be a certain, of course, process that is carried out. And in a lot of these arrests, they are targeting people who have legal processes underway and are not deportable by their own kind of framework. So it's a really heartbreaking story, but I think that the mass outpouring in response to it is heartening. So I don't know, Rania, if there's anything you want to add to that.
Well, I do want to add that the pause in vehicle stops is temporary. So keep in mind that it is temporary while enforcement and removal operations officers receive additional training on vehicle stop tactics. So just keep in mind that this is obviously something being announced for the time being, like you said, to stop any sort of mass uprising against this, like what we saw in Minnesota. But we know that more training is not going to make ICE stop shooting and killing people, because this is a fascistic organization that has very little to no standards of who can be a part of it. And it is allowed to just be, these are trigger happy assholes who are excited to carry out violence. They can't be, a lot of them can't be police officers because they don't qualify. So they become ICE officers where they can act like cops with even less scrutiny and less procedures. And we already know the police in America, have almost a blank check to already carry out loads of violence against people. And they can just claim, my life felt like it was under threat, and get away with murder. It's even worse for ICE. And Trump is using them in a politically motivated fashion. So it's quite scary. We've been watching it since his administration came to power. Just these videos have become so normalized of people being treated like less than animals. And then you see people getting shot and killed. But it definitely speaks to the fact that they recognize that there is mass outrage over these ongoing, instances of death squads killing people on the streets of America.
Yeah. It is like death squads and very, very concerning. And I think we'll make sure that you're following Breakthrough News, because we will be covering.
We are on it.
Yeah, we're on it, and we will be covering all of these protests from on the ground. You won't get that coverage anywhere else, so make sure you are following Breakthrough News, BT Newsroom on all platforms. And we've had articles on this as well, so make sure you're getting all of that.